Hello, we are Group 1. My name is Holly Pierce.
I'm Melissa Barrowman.
I'm Karina Tarpening.
I'm Margie Summers.
And we are going to start our presentation starting with Melissa.
All right. For the physical and cognitive domain intervention assignment that we did for lesson 11 and 12, for our group, we chose to focus on the physical domain. And part of that was physical, medical, and educational, nutritional risk and problems. There are, with abuse and physical neglect, there's 78.3% of children that are neglected on average, and 17.6% are physically abused. So with that number, it affects the child in that domain. It affects their development. They have poor behavior at school performance. They don't get the proper medical care for development. Their gross motor skills are delayed. They have speech delay, learning delays. And part of our interventions, we talked about using dietitian specialists, doing routine well child exams and immunizations, extended family support through the ecosystem, community-based programs, church programs, also through professional educated staff in the school system, occupational therapy, social services, and child protective services. And with those interventions, with the ecosystem, it kind of engulfs the whole microsystem where the child is involved that can help support the child obtain healthy development. With the medical, it was important to make sure that we focused on getting well child exams, making sure that the vision and the hearing are checked, because with physical abuse and neglect in the physical domain, you will find that those simple exams are not being done with the child. So the child has, that contributes to their learning disability if they can't see the chalkboard, or they can't hear the teacher, or they're not getting their teeth checked. And they're also getting really poor nutrition. So we focused on getting, focusing on recess and lunch, making sure they're getting enough PE time, they're getting proper nutrition, they're being taught good eating, healthy habits. And so that's what we did for the physical domain intervention assignment for lesson 11 and 12. And it was great because we kind of focused on those intervention supports that you find at school when the child goes to school. The child is in school for the majority of the year, over 100 days, and so their main influence can be at the school where they're getting the attention they need, they're getting the therapy, the nutrition, the PE, the stimulation, all that is required for them to develop better outside of their home if their home environment proceeds to have those risks and problems. And part of my interview that I did was I interviewed a paraprofessional that works in a really lower economic status geographic in Arizona, where she has a lot of Hispanics, a lot of Indians, and these kids. She just works with physical or special needs children, and they come in and they're severely malnourished. They have speech delay, they have attachment problems. Some aren't potty trained at 6, they have potty training issues. And so they have specific dietitian specialists come in. Like I said, occupational therapy come in, a reading specialist that really focuses on helping these kids learn where they're so delayed to catch up with their age group. So it was really interesting. For my social emotional intervention, my research, again, I focused on the physical abuse and neglect of children from ages 2 to 11 in the social emotional domain. The risk and problems associated with these domains are development delays, psychological consequences, and behavioral impairment that result in insecure attachment and antisocial skills and behaviors. So my research I found in a British medical journal. It's called Emotional Abuse and Neglect. And the author, he discussed key features of abuse and neglect in preschool and school-age children. And some of the features that you find in the social emotional domain include language delay, attention span limitation, social emotional immaturity, learning difficulty, and poor coping skills. And you also see overactive, aggressive, and impulsive, indiscriminated friendliness, which I thought was interesting because we had a whole chapter about developing friends and how the importance of friendship is. So these children will, who are neglected and abused in the social emotional domain, they have problems, of course, developing friendships, but they discriminate and they seek physical contacts from strangers. That connects with the attachment therapy or the attachment theory, where they're not getting the secure attachments, they're getting disorganized, those type of attachments. So some of the interventions in my research for this specific domain and for this specific problem, I found, of course, social services, child protective services, and then really working in your ecosystem that consists of a dietitian specialist, because you will always find that they have poor nutrition when you see abuse and neglect. And so socially and emotionally, if you're not getting that nutrition, you're not feeding your body, you're not feeding your brain, then that causes, it's a whole balance. So if you're lacking one, you're going to lack the other. You have, like I said, the dietitian specialist doctors, you have behavioral psychologists, therapists, professional educated staff at the school to help teach social skills and self-regulation. And what was interesting with the paraprofessional that I interviewed, they have a friendship program. So the kids in her special needs class, they'll come in, and every morning they have each child greet one another and say, "Hello, friend." So they'll address them by their name. Let's say if I was going to address Karina and we both had special need problems because of abuse and neglect, I would say, "Hello, Karina, you're my friend." And that they have that every morning before they have class time, and they address each person by their name and say, "Hello, friend." And so they have this friendship program, and they've seen how it makes a huge difference on these children who would lack communication skills, lack attachments, lack, they have all these antisocial skills. They're seeing that these kids are coming and they're thriving. Okay. Another intervention that I research is called CASA. It's a court-appointed special advocates for children. And this program is a network of specific programs designed for children who are being physically and emotionally abused and neglected. And CASA Dependency and Neglect Program addresses the needs of children involved with the Department of Human Services in court because of the abuse and neglect and maltreatment issues. So the judge appoints a CASA worker who is a core advocacy trainer, and they cover issues in child development, cultural competency, physical and emotional abuse. They monitor family compliance with treatment plan that the court orders, research and investigate all aspects of the child's life, ensures expedient attention to the child's needs, and have regular contact with the child to meet with all the intervention parties. So some of the CASA programs here in Colorado Springs includes Milton Foster Children's Fund And that core mission is to provide resiliency, build resiliency, care and support, and provide financial funds for like music, sports, dance, swim lessons that these children would not be able to have because of the neglect, the abuse, or their economic status. And then there's also a 211 information and referral program, and that's through your phone. So if you think there's a child with need, you dial 211 on your phone, and it instantly connects you quick access to these agencies that can assist you like right away. So that intervention of report. So that is the highlights from my domain and from my interviews.
Great job. We will now hear from Karina.
Fun. So Margie and I kind of talked about in lesson 11 and 12 the concepts of healthy learning and the difference between developmental disability and developmental delays, and how parents can help their children with delays, or if they're concerned with their children not keeping up in school. And some of the best things that we found were learning through play, because that's how children's brains are naturally organized, is to learn while they're playing and while they're having fun. Keeps their curiosity going and helps their cognitive development. And we also talked about nutrition and how you guys kind of talked about how it helped physically, and we discussed how cognitively having improper nutrition can cause delays and can make it so they can't concentrate in school and they can't focus and they're unable to absorb information as easily. So their cognitive development suffers. And there is a tendency for parents when they get nervous about their children as well, and fearing that their child is going to fall behind or that something will go wrong, and they want to be able to fix it for their child. And so often helicopter parenting is a risk that children face, because parents so badly want their children to succeed. They love them so much. And so sometimes parents get a little bit overboard, but that can cause some cognitive delays as well. And also they don't learn as well how to take care of themselves. They don't trust other people as well, and they're more likely to have anxiety and depression. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And for my topic that I studied personally, I actually chose the topic of childhood exposure to pornography. And I feel like this is an extremely dangerous and an increasingly prevalent issue that children face today. And I was reading online that recently a man who struggled with an addiction to pornography ended up raping 6 women in the span of 4 months. And in an interview with Ted Bundy while he was on death row, if you've heard of him, very infamous and not great person who ended up raping and then brutally murdering 23 young women, and discussed how his road to becoming that person who did those things to other people began with not growing up in an abusive home or having parents that didn't love him. In fact, he talked about how they really had very good parents. There was no fighting. He says it was very happy and Christian, but the issue was when he was a young child, he stumbled upon pornography. And that led to a lifelong addiction, which then changed him into someone who was willing to commit horrible, horrible acts against other people. And I read 2 different articles regarding how to protect children from this, because it's now, when Ted Bundy was a kid, you had to go and find it in magazines, or you had to go to an adult video store. But now children are able to access pornography through the click of a mouse. They can find it on their phones, their parents' laptop. They can see it on television, broadcasted. It's everywhere. And so an article I read about the importance of religion protecting against pornography was actually produced by Brigham Young University. And 4 of the students there wrote a paper on how even accidental viewing or even getting embroiled in pornography, if the child is more religious and is able to turn to God in those times, it really does help them to untangle themselves. And that's from childhood all the way through adolescence is how they did their study. And in a study by the Child Abuse Review, it discussed about how talking with your children about sexuality is important, because they'll stumble upon pornography and they'll get confused. They'll think that that's what sex is, that that's what physical intimacy means, is those pictures that are portrayed, and it's really a lie. And so children get confused, and then they don't interact with their peers correctly because they think this is the way that it's supposed to happen. So talking to your children about the real relationships between people and how it works to produce children, and how it's good for within marriage to connect spouses, and that it's not something that's just awful and dirty, but that pornography is a lie and an awful sex educator, and just helping children understand the difference between reality and the lie that pornography portrays helps children kind of find their way, even if they do stumble upon it, because in this world, unfortunately, they will. I actually talked with a mother in my interviews, and she was terrified of pornography. Her husband struggles with it, and she has a young son who he's currently 2, but she knows that as he gets older, that pornography is probably going to be something that enters his life, or that he has questions about or sees because it's so prevalent. And she discussed how concerned she was and how she wanted to make sure that her child had a good relationship with her. So he felt like he could come and talk to her if she found something, and have good role models who were males that were able to put off such things and see the happiness that comes from being able to choose real intimacy and real love, and not the lie that pornography portrays. So that kind of sums up my, is that too short?
Well, awesome. Great job, Karina. We are going to now hear from Margie.
Hi. So just a little bit more onto the presentation that Karina and I did. I want to talk about the playing through healthy living. When the children play, they help develop their brain socially, and they can start learning through different strategies of how to process different things, through problems, through happy times, whatever. Through long playing develops their different motor skills. Just lost the word I'm thinking of. It the different skills that they can learn through motor. The research I talked about is relationships, and that goes on with playing. When kids are young, they interact, and they are like 2 to 6. They all the toys are mine. Don't take it. Don't. That's mine. Even though if there's 2 set of toys, they still want both of them. They don't want no one to touch their stuff. So with that, and talking with my interviews with different people, how do they help their children not to say everything is mine at that age, how to teach them, and they will play. They model examples. They go out in the community, and when they're playing with friends, they are down on the ground with them. there's a lot of parents that sit and just watch the kids play, but these ones I interviewed, they're down on the kids' level playing, having fun with them. When, with interactions, the kids, they start communicating at a young age, trying to talk, smiling, touching, babbling, but by the second year, they show the aggressive behaviors. Like I said, my toys, nobody else gets to touch them. Then when they start getting older, if they haven't really gained friendships in kindergarten, they will struggle by 10 years old making friends throughout school time. And they said a lot of the research I did is those who have disabilities or delay, and we read it that they have a hard time understanding how to make friends. Because if somebody says hi, they think, oh, we're best buds, we're friends, we'll do everything together. But because those kids don't really understand what how to make friends and things, so they're learning and they're being taught of what to do and how to help each other. The one family I talked to, they have a disability child, and they are struggling with this child of how to make friends and how to interact with others, to be kind, to be loving, and how when he gets upset, don't go off and bite some random kid in the store. They're trying to teach him, if you're upset, you need to go away and take a time out and then come back and talk. Especially if we're in a store with strangers, this kid runs up and bites, and what do we do? Just apologize, and that family's traumatized, like, what did I just do? I don't even know this kid. So they're really struggling with how to do that. So they've been working with the school, trying to have them help this child not to be so aggressive and to find that balance between happiness. The parents, when they found out he had a disability, they were in denial. They didn't want nothing to do with this kid, so the relationship with the child was really bad, and that has part of the problem how he can't develop relationships with other people, because his relationship with his parents is not the best. So when we start the relationships with the family inside with each other, it will help the child grow and learn to develop more relationships with others. So that's it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Margie. I will go next. I worked with Karina and Jessica on doing.
You mean Melissa?
Oh, sorry, Melissa.
I was like, you did?
Melissa and Jessica doing neglect and abuse of children between ages 2 and 11 years old. We focused on the physical domain of this and how that impacts a child physically. And we all know that when a child is abused, it really can affect them physically. They can get broken arms, they can get broken legs, and that kind of thing. But we focused a lot on just the external components of it. One of them being, like Melissa had said, when the well checks. When a child goes to the well check, a doctor is able to tell if the child is getting enough nutrients. They're able to tell if the child is eating too much food and is having an obesity problem at such a young age that can lead to diabetes and heart complications and other issues. We looked at the eyesight and the hearing. A lot of times children don't realize that they have a vision problem because that might be normal to them. They might have always had a blurry vision. They just think that's normal. So when a child actually goes to a well check, they can check those kind of things and check for hearing problems and eyesight problems. When children miss those well checks, that's when you can start seeing kind of complications arising later in life. We also talked about how when they go to school, it's important. And when children are neglected and abused, a lot of times they don't end up going to school. And sometimes they do go to school. And when they are at school, that is where the exosystem can come into play and actually help the child learn and learn how to take care of themselves and how to eat properly and how to have physical exercise such as PE and recess. And we had gone into the problems of having some of the schools trying to take recess out and trying to take PE out or lower it, which can actually hurt a lot of children out there, especially if they're abused and neglected. When you look at extreme cases of abuse and neglect, some children don't even have the opportunity to go outside and run around and play and be a kid. And that opportunity at school is very important to them. It can help them learn how to eat better and exercise, which would lead to less obesity. And we talked about some of the interventions of that in your schools and the teachers and government programs that are out there. There's a Healthy People 2020 initiative that's put on by the government, trying to get healthier people by 2020, getting them out there exercising more, doing 30 minutes of play outside. We also we talked a lot about just recess, and unfortunately there's a lot of schools that are cutting recess out. But that is probably some of the best times that children will have is at recess. And a couple statistics that we had found, a survey was performed in 2005 and found that 7% of first graders and 8% of third graders have never had recess before, which is actually very sad and unfortunate. And we talked about the lunch nutrition programs at the school and how the children actually don't get very much time to eat lunch at school. When we found that less than 20 minutes is actually very poor for children, and they need a lot more. They need about 25 minutes to actually have an adequate, balanced meal that they don't feel rushed to eat. And a lot of like low-income schools and children rely on 2 meals a day because a lot of schools will offer. They will offer the lunch programs and the breakfast programs at reduced or no cost to the families that qualify for it. I then chose to do my social and emotional domain on the risks of technology and the actual amount of use that children are spending on it and how it's affecting them emotionally and socially. Children spend a lot of time on social media. They spend a lot of time on watching television, movies, playing video games, and all of this can actually lower a child's emotional intelligence, that I found in an article. And it says EI is known for understanding and recognizing other emotions as well as those in oneself. EI is measured by your self-awareness, your motivation, self-regulation, empathy, and social skills, which can all be affected by technology. Dr. Daniel Goleman, who is a psychologist and who writes many, many books about this actual topic, he said the expanding hours spent alone with gadgets and digital tools could lower EI, which is the emotional intelligence, due to shrinkages in the time young children spend in face-to-face interactions. So that kind of was interesting that children aren't spending a lot of time face-to-face and having that face-to-face contact with an actual another human being. I actually watched one of my kids was watching a TV show, and on the TV show, the kid comes in, or he's playing video games, and he has the headphones on, and the dad comes in and he's all, why don't you go outside and play? Go play with people. He's like, Dad, I am playing with people. I'm playing with 20 of my friends. And it was online. And he's like, no, actually like interact with somebody. And he's like, what's that? Like they did. And it kind of put it in perspective that this television show did that. Like, that's so true. This is what's going on with our children in our society. Children have a hard enough time trying to self-regulate as it is, and in all their aspects. And so when you throw in a technology into the mix of it, It makes it a little bit harder. And it is doable though. Some of the interventions that I had come up with on my own where I know I've had to use with my own children who are teenagers and down to almost 8 years old, is setting a timer and helping the child, okay, you have 30 minutes, we'll set a timer. When the timer's off, it goes off. And I put it in our safe actually, so they can't even get it back out. Some other things that I have seen other people do is they get a lock and they stick it on the prong of the part that plugs into the wall. And the lock does not come off until all chores and homework have been met. So then the mom goes in and unlocks the lock, and then they can plug the device actually in, which is another one. Another one I've seen is that the Wi-Fi password would change daily, and it does not get given out until everything's been done, which is good. But unfortunately, I don't think I would be able to remember the passwords. And I think that would totally fail on my part. But if you are organized enough to remember a different password every day, good for you. So a couple of the things that that I found that I want for my family was a device called the Circle, and it's by Disney. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but what it is it's a device that you can plug into your Wi-Fi, and it monitors everything in your Wi-Fi, and it can actually turn off devices and turn devices on at certain times. And it can actually turn off Wi-Fi on certain devices and not on other devices. So I haven't 1 minute. Okay. I haven't researched much on it, but I think it is a good thing. Okay. So the interviews that I had done were with two of my friends. One is a foster mom that has had 67 children in her home, and she has adopted 5 of them. She was and I interviewed her for my 2 to 5 year olds, and she had great knowledge about all aspects of life, from neglect, abuse, and obviously because she was a foster mom, to the emotional side of things and how to interact these children into her home. And she said, one thing that I remember was she said that she always found out what one of their favorites is and tried to incorporate that into her home to make them feel a little bit at home. And she would always have them call her mom, because she said, I never knew if I was going to be able to adopt them or not, but I wanted to know that I love them just like a mom would love them. The other one was one of my best friends. She has 7 children, and I interviewed her for the 6 to the 11 year olds. And we had talked a lot about this aspect of the technology and how that is actually hurting a lot of children. They don't know how to say sorry. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to call somebody on the phone to invite them over, because it's always texting, or they don't know how, it's become a huge issue. And so it was just very interesting to interview them, especially the mom that has had 67 kids come in her home. And that was very good and interesting. So I think that's all I have to say about my subjects. So since Jessica is not on, we've been trying to get her to come on, but she hasn't been able to get on. We are going to open up for a discussion on everything that we've discussed. So I'll leave it to somebody to start talking.
I thought it was really cool how you guys, everyone thinks about how mentally what abuse does, and a lot of people think about how it can cause broken bones and it can cause physical damage, but I think often people don't think about those external things, like going in for a wellness check to see how their nutrition is, or if their eyesight is okay, or if they're hearing correctly, or the neglect makes it so they don't get to go and play outside. I thought that was a really cool side of things that you guys researched. I liked that a lot. Just things that you don't normally think about that maybe you could help a child have or enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the reasons, I don't want to say that my niece is abusive, because she's not physically abusive, but her child, who's my great niece, I think I've told you before, is morbidly obese, and she's 1 year old. Oh. And I look at that as abuse. But a lot of it is she doesn't know how to parent. Like she's by herself. She lives kind of far from me, but she doesn't know how to parent. And so it's her child where she's 1 year old and she wears size 6 clothes. And even size 6s are getting too small. She has to put them underneath her belly, but that's the only size that will go around her waist. And she's just so large. And so she came over for Thanksgiving, and just watching her interact with her daughter, she kept her in her high chair or her playpen the whole time. She didn't let her get out to crawl or to walk and then when I asked her, oh, did you feed her lunch? And she just, well, I gave her a bottle. I'm like, what did you give her? And she's like, I gave her whole milk. And I'm like, okay, but that's not food. She's like, well, the doctor said I just have to give her whole milk. And I'm like, no, she needs actual food, like food. And she just was clueless that children need nutrients, not just in her mind, she was taking care of her by giving her milk, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and in between for snacks, but she would never gave her any actual substance to chew on or to learn how to eat, put things in her mouth and eat. And every time I had gotten her out of her high chair, I gave her a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and my niece almost flipped out. She ate the whole thing and she loved it. And then I cleaned her up, put her out of her high chair, and my niece, she came running in. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm letting her play. And she's like, well, who's going to watch her? And I'm like, you are. You're her mom. She's like, well, I was going to go help you. And I'm like, my house is open. You can see her from pretty much every part of my house. And she's like, but what if she gets hurt? And so I think that is part of an abuse and neglect. Like, she doesn't understand how to parent. And I think that's a lot of the problems with today's generations, is that they don't know how to parent. And I think there needs to be some kind of education to get them there.
I know, I remember when I was not only in junior high, but high school, it was mandatory to have
like that home ec where the parent, yeah.
And the boys had to take it too. And it consists of a parenting class, a cooking class, a sewing class, a typing class.
Oh, yeah.
And it was mandatory. And you don't see that anymore. You're not seeing these skills that need to be taught, these life skills needing to be taught to these youth to when they become parents. I also think we feel like, well, innately, we're born as women to have this distinct connection, nurturing connection. And some of us have it and some of us don't. And even those that have it, I remember, like with my first, I thought, I wish this child came with a manual. It doesn't come with a manual. But what am I going to do to get myself educated? So it's really utilizing your resources. If you've got someone telling you, hey, this is what I am observing on your parenting skills, then instead of being offensive or take offense in it, say, okay, well, what community programs are out there? Like, are you getting online? Are you searching for yourself? Are you getting involved in play groups to where that play group, like mommy yoga? I did mommy yoga with my child, or mommy swim, where I really like Karina Margie's playing through healthy living. Like, yeah, you go to the park and you see a lot of the moms, they're on the park bench, they're on their phone, and their child's doing whatever, and they're not even willing to go push their child in a swing. So I really like that intervention of getting down on the ground and playing with your child, even past, I've got a teenager. Am I interacting with him? Like, am I playing with my boys, even though they like to rough and tumble and I don't? But there's a way to find that balance to where you're actually interacting with your children through that playing. And it does develop and promote healthy social and emotional interventions. I mean, it does promote healthy development in that cognitive domain and all the domains to where, and Karina, I really like your pornography, because that's a risk. That's not one that I would have just thought about as an emotional and a social problem in the domain. And yet, pornography, we're seeing it really, really young. In my family class, we learned that you're seeing pornography as young as 8 years old. And I've got a 9-year-old who's almost 10, and I'm thinking, my 10-year-old could be addicted to pornography. Like that's really scary that but it's in everything. You can't look anywhere in society and not see sex being exploited. And so I like how you mentioned, hey, parents need to really communicate with their kids about their bodies, how their bodies work and function, how it makes them feel, and then how, out of respect, this is how you respect your body. This is how you by not looking at pornography, or pornography is pornography to me. It could be a Victoria's Secret underwear model.
Yeah, like they can't even walk through the mall without.
Right, that's pornography. But then,
me too.
To not look is not only respecting yourself and your body, but it's respecting that woman, even though she's not really respecting herself. Does that make sense? And that I've really had to instill that in my boys, because you see, like, pornography is more apt to boys than it is to girls.
Yeah.
And then, Holly, I really like your interventions about, I set a timer, and we have a dock station. I've never heard about the device that you plug into the wall that locks. That's interesting. I'm interested.
Yeah. Or Circle.
Yeah, that's it's called The Circle, and it's by Disney. And I keep telling it's $100, and I keep telling my husband, we need to get this. So, because my problem is, you guys might be able to help me with figuring something out. My problem is, okay, so I have a 16-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl who love music. My 16-year-old boy listens to hymns all the time, 24/7. They're his favorite music. That's all he listens to.
I need one of those.
I know. And so my problem is like, that's what he falls asleep to at night. And he plays it, it's kind of loud, and so I can hear it into my room. And then sometimes I have to yell at him to turn it down. But my daughter likes listening to like pop, like the latest music, whatever. And they don't have radios. They have docking stations in their room to Bluetooth speakers.
Their phone, yeah.
Yeah, for their phone. And so my problem is, okay, I need to take their phones away. And then we keep talking about taking their phones away at night. But then it's like, my son's like, well, Mom, what am I going to, when I want to listen to the hymns, that's how I fall asleep at night, calms me. And I'm like, but then if I say, okay, but then I can't say I have to take my daughters. You know what I mean? Like, it's like this battle, and I keep saying, okay, well, give me your phones. And they're like, okay. And then, so I'm like, maybe I need to just go get a Bluetooth that's in the hallway that plays hymns that goes out to all the bedrooms and take their phones away completely. I haven't found this balance yet, but it's hard.
Get like a CD player. Go old school.
I know. I need to. And then when the CD runs out, it's over.
Yeah.
There's no repeat.
You guys have 14 songs.
I need to try and find something, because I don't like that they have their phones in their room all the time. And, like, they're not on it. My daughter probably is on it more than my son. My son, he just uses it pretty much for music. But, and how do I yell at him? It's church music, or he's listening to conference talks. Like, he's just I don't know. Don't even ask. I do not. He did not get this from me or my husband. I don't know where he came from. And so I kind of I'm like, Caleb, turn off your iPod. And then I sit there and listen, and it's like, President Monson speaking. And I'm like, oh, geez. He's like, really? You're going to tell President Monson to be quiet? And I'm like, oh my gosh, why are you throwing that in my face? Like, so the whole technology thing is hard when it's, you know, I remember as a teenager listening to my radio, having to push record and stop at the song I wanted before they started talking on the commercial, you know, if I wanted to keep the song because on my little cassette tape, because we didn't have any of this technology. Yeah, I just aged myself pretty well. It's awesome.
My sister, she's released a set, or not, the Young Women's President, and they did a little research on their own about technology use with the young women. They took all their phones and they went through Twitter and added up how many tweets. Okay. And this is within a week span of tweets with the young women. She has 20 young women, and so they added it up, and there was over 15,000 tweets.
Oh my.
Oh, wow.
Okay, over 15,000 tweets. Now she's like, where do you guys have time? Well, we're doing it in class. We're doing it in the bathroom. We're doing it. They're constantly. So, yes, listening to conference, because I've got the same problem with my son. He likes to listen to hymn music. He likes to listen to conference talks. But is setting that time. How many hours are they actively playing, interacting with the parents, interacting with their siblings? If they're just so focused on technology, then they're not having that, they're not developing those social skills. They may be achieving high eye-hand coordination, yes, but that's not going to get them. They're not going to be able to be in the workforce. They're not going to be able to have good relationships or learn how to communicate like you're supposed to with, you know, verbally, non-verbally, all those that you need to have a healthy development.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to set that time. So if that means an hour and that's all they get a day, then that's all they get. So
I have noticed my daughter, because she gets grounded a lot from hers, because she'll just hang out in her room and watch Netflix all day long on her iPhone. And so I've taken it many times, and the times that I have taken her phone for more than like a week, you can definitely see her emotional and social domains change dramatically.
Oh,
like
wow.
she's not snippy, she's not sarcastic, she's not like rude. She's actually fun to be around, and she comes and hangs out with us. And so I just keep telling her, I'm like, dude, you and technology just don't go together. Like, you don't mix well. Like, your personality doesn't mix well with technology. You may not see it, but all of us can see it. And it's just interesting to see that change in her emotional, social domains. Now that I have learned about it, see it change once I take the technology away from her. And it's not even all technology. She still watches television out with the family because we only have one TV. But you know what I mean? Like, she's not in her room, cooped up in her bedroom with this little device having a Gilmore Girls marathon by herself.
Margie, what was some of your highlights?
I did a lot of the relationships with people. I agree with the timer. I was a foster mom in Wyoming for a time, and when I got these foster kids, one of them was 8 years old. He came home. He was in abusive neglect. His dad was terrible. He was in pornography. He taught the 8-year-old it's okay to look at this stuff. So I was trying to train him, tell him, no, it's not. And he had no relationship skills. And so when we have time, we go out in the community. I was trying to tell him, no, you don't need a phone. You go out there and you play. This is how you kick a ball. Play baseball, play soccer, play something. And so that was difficult. And just that relationship that he didn't get was hard from his dad, because his dad's like, hey, it's okay, you're fine. Your mom would do it. She could do everything for you. I was like, no, it's not. It's not good. Back since I've been divorced, it's difficult seeing that technology has changed. Even me trying to get out and talk to people and to date, the guys think, oh, hey, let's text. Hey, do you want to go out? And I'm like, where are you? You come ask me in person. I like the old fashioned. It's like, well, I don't have time. It's like, then you don't have time to go on a date if you can't take time to come ask me. And so it's just a struggle. And just, they're like 30, in their 30s. And like, how can you go wayward? You grew up with the technology, but now you adapted to it and you think that's better. Pornography was a huge thing. I have a friend who lost his life. He lost his marriage. He lost all his kids. It was very difficult because he wasn't taught also by his parents the correct way. So that relationship again was not in the life of others to help them. I'm trying to think of everything where's this day? There. Yeah. We have 7 minutes.
Another thing I really liked, Margie, is when you were talking about role playing and modeling. The kids learn from from the examples from the peers around them. So are we modeling the type of relationships, the type of our children that we want them to grow up to be? If we ourselves are mimicking unhealthy behavior, it is inevitable that the child will also mimic the same behavior. That's same with abuse and neglect. If you have abuse and neglect happening in a spousal relationship or other relationships that a child witnesses inside the home or maybe in their extended family, then that will affect them with their development. So
yes.
The role playing is another great way to be like with pornography. Okay, so son, if you're approached like this was a perfect example. This is a perfect example that just happened to me with my son last week. He knows a girl from church, and she goes to a different school. And there's a guy he knows from school. He's associates with this guy, with this boy. He's not, I've never heard of him. He doesn't bring him home, so I don't know this friend. And he's just coincidentally, he's girlfriends with this girl from church. And my son finds this out because he's like, oh, look at these texts that my girlfriend's sending. And he finds out it's, oh, that's your girlfriend? I know her from church. Oh yeah, well, we want to see more, and exposes my son to these texts that are just foul. And he's like, well, I don't want to see anymore. I said, okay, well, so he tells me about it, and I said, okay, that is tragic, but this is what you need to do. Next time, you need to tell him, I don't want to have anything to do with your relationship with her. I'm not going to name names out of privacy, but I don't want to see a text. I don't want to hear what's going on between you two, only because out of respect to myself, but respect to her and respect to you. And if he doesn't understand that, that's okay, but you stay firm in your standards. So it's just kind of that role playing of this is what you can say when this is presented to you next time, or this is what you can do to avoid the situation next time. So that type of role playing with your children, whether they be adolescents or younger in the ages that we're learning about, that you still need that role playing, just like stranger danger. You have that role playing with your children about inappropriate touching versus appropriate touching, the relationships that they have with their peers at school, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. If you have that constant dialogue with your children, yes, parents can be the most and should be the most influential person in your child's life. And then it goes out to the teachers and so forth and so on. Anyway, I also really like the helicopter parent, because I do think that is a huge risk. I see too many parents helicoptering, and I can see how that deters development in the social and emotional domain. So those are some more of my highlights that I wrote down. I really enjoyed.
Oh, awesome.
What's our time?
Awesome.
We have 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Okay. So I'll do my summary. Does that sound okay?
Summary.
Okay, we're starting our summary. Margie, please tell me when my 2 minutes is up.
Okay.
Overall, we learned so much, both in the physical and cognitive domain and the emotional and social domains. We talked about the physical abuse and neglect in both the physical and emotional and social domains. We talked about pornography, the risk of pornography, the interventions, which is parents, church, awareness. We talked about technology and the risk associated with technology and how that affects the empathy and social skills, emotional intelligence. The interventions for that would be dock stations, time limits, communicating with your child, and just really limiting the amount of time that they are exposed to technology, so they can really have the interactions and self-regulate and get those emotional attachments and that they're supposed to learn through other people. Some of the interventions with the abuse and neglect is parent classes, CASA, the community, the well child exams, just really looking out for these children who, if you suspect any type of abuse or neglect, then there's a 211 phone system that you can call, and that directs you to get into access to help for that child. We talked about active play and healthy play and how important that is for children to move around and explore their environment. Really stimulating their minds and exploring in their environment builds upon their cognitive growth. It builds upon their emotional growth. It helps develop relationships. It helps develop friends, social skills. It helps emotional regulation, self-regulation. And some of those interactions is actually getting down on the floor and playing with your child. It's taking them to the park and actually playing with them in the park, playing tackle football or frisbee or flying a kite. Role-playing. Role-playing is important, and that helps you develop that communication skills that you need with your kids to know what's good and know what's bad. And then modeling. The best example a child can have is that influential example from the parent, and you just trying to do the best that you can do with those in that domain. So if the child is not getting if their environment influences are not healthy, then you go outside those influences. So like a grandparent would be a good modeling, an aunt or or uncle. You look to your ecosystem, your microsystem, and you really pull through those systems to develop and to get those interventions out.
Great job.
Great job. Is that 2 minutes?
That's it. Right on it.
Okay. Do I need to anything else you guys would like to add on to that summary? I think
that was great.
I'm sad that Jessica was not able to participate because hers was sleep deprivation, and I didn't. Again, that's something that I didn't think of as a risk, but it would have been great to hear her dive into that, because I don't get enough sleep and I know my kids don't. So anyway.
Great job, you guys.